Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of It's Lit, It's Dalck. Today, as you can see, we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence, the public document as written by Thomas Jefferson. All right, welcome guys to the new episode, and let's get down to business. We're going to analyze the Declaration of Independence of the United States from the literary point of view. First thing to do is ask ourselves the essential question to start. How do we gain our freedom? All right, think about that and let's make a short discussion, probably some kind of activity, and then we can continue with the video. Quick start. The Declaration of Independence represented the views of American patriots on what constituted good government and oppressive government. What are your ideas about good government and bad government? Let's discuss. Now we're going to continue with the next part. The first thing to understand or to take into consideration is what are the elements of a public document as a genre of literature. Number one, it provides information of public interest or concern. Okay, it has to contain information that it's interesting for the general public. Of course, it's going to be directly connected to where the document is written for and what people is it written for. Second is that it may include attempts at persuasion using sophisticated language. Okay, a public document like the Declaration of Independence, it's also written in an argumentative structure. All right, under an argumentative sequence, they're going to present evidence, they're going to present pros, cons, and everything that they need in order to persuade the readers of a main idea or a thesis that they want to present. It also includes government documents. Within itself, a public document includes government documents, speeches, signs, and rules and regulations. Okay? In the case of the Declaration of Independence, we're going to see their own opinions on what constitutes a good or a bad government of a nation as great as the U.S. So the first thing to analyze here is argumentative texts. Thomas Jefferson wrote these texts to justify to the British the colonies have moved forward independence. It is an argumentative text and it has the following characteristics. Number one, a clear arguable thesis, or what we also can call a central idea. What is it that I want to state and what I want to persuade people of? The second is reasons and evidence that support that thesis. There's no way you can convince or persuade a person of your idea if you don't present reasonable evidence and clear evidence that it is true. The third thing is logical and emotional appeals to the audience. When you make people reflect on themselves and they go with the famous, oh yes. When people do that, make sure you can be sure that you are convincing and persuading them because you are appealing to emotional aspects, to logical aspects to make people aware of what you are saying or of what you're writing about. Number four is a convincing conclusion that sums up the important ideas. Of course, conclusions will always summarize the ideas presented in a text, but in a public document, in an argumentative text, the conclusion is super important because you want to highlight not only your thesis, but also the reasons why people should believe or follow your central idea. Finally, a call to action that encourages the audience to do something. In the case of the Declaration of Independence, it finishes amazingly with this call to action to the people in general to do what they need to do in order to gain or regain their liberty and freedom. As we read, we are going to identify the thesis, types of support, appeals, conclusion, and of course the call to action in the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. We're also going to analyze the structure of these texts. The power of the Declaration of Independence comes not just from what it says, but also from how Jefferson says it. Jefferson's style is reflected in the structure of the work. The Declaration can be divided into 4 different sections. A preamble, or foreword, that announces the reason for the document. All right? Why do we need to read this? Why is it important for people to know this? That's what you are going to find in the preamble. And then the Declaration of People's Fundamental Rights. Okay? This is a representation of evidence and then the responses to counter arguments or claims against Jefferson's proposal. Finally, a conclusion that states the desired action. Jefferson also uses syntax, which is the arrangement of words to express and emphasize his ideas. The structure in these 4 different parts and the syntax communicate a very specific tone, and they reflect the purpose of the argument. Okay, so just to make sure, what are the 4 parts in the structure of this text? Number 1, the preamble or foreword, okay, which explains why people need to read and know this information. The second is the reasons, the Declaration of People's Fundamental Rights. That's the second. Okay, number 1, preamble, foreword. Number 2, Declaration of Fundamental Rights that people need also to know in order to make decisions. Then the presentation of evidence and responses to counter arguments, because there were a lot of people who were not in agreement with what he was stating. He would say, these are the evidence and your arguments, whatever you're saying, I rebut them, okay, with this evidence. And finally, of course, the conclusion, which states that the desired action and includes the call to action. Let's continue. This is the type of chart that we're going to be using in classwork to record key ideas in each section of the text. All right, we're going to be reading, we're going to be looking for information. What is the specific information that is stated in the preamble, in the Declaration of Rights, in the evidence, and of course in the conclusion. We will see this in further classwork, and let's continue for now. Now, language conventions. In language conventions, what we're going to be analyzing in the Declaration of Independence is something called the parallel structure. It's also called parallelism. It's just the use of similar grammatical constructions to express ideas that are closely related or equal in importance. Now, there are two ways of using parallel structure. One of them is actually repeating the exact same words several times, at least 2 times, all right? Or repeating the structure of the grammar. For example, if a sentence includes the structure pronoun, verb, and predicate, when you repeat that right after, even though you use a different pronoun, a different verb, and a different predicate, you are still using parallel structure. Okay? Let me give you a short analysis, because these constructions may include phrases, clauses, or sentences. Okay? It could be a short phrase, it could be a whole sentence, or just a clause. If you think about it, parallel structures are important elements that the writers uses together with the syntax. Remember that syntax is how we organize words in a sentence, and sometimes we may manipulate a little bit of it for the sake of communicating a specific mood, all right, or a specific tone. So we're going to consider this example from the Declaration of Independence that we have right here. It goes like, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. What we see here is not a parallel structure literally repeating the same words, but repeating the grammar structure. We start with a verb in an ing form. If you see laying, let me just mark it here, laying its foundation to such principles, and the second clause starts with the same type of verb in an ing form. And then we go with This is its foundation. This is possessive adjective followed by foundation, which is a noun. So we have verb, possessive adjective, noun, verb in ing form, possessive adjective, and noun. The only difference is the powers is in plural. And then on such principles, we got here a preposition, an adverb, and another noun. So we finish in the same way the second clause. A preposition, an adverb, and a noun. Even though they are very different words, they do have the same syntax, the same parallel structure in what grammar concerns, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. So we have an ing form verb, possessive adjective, noun, preposition, adverb, noun, and then we'll repeat the same thing. ing form verb, possessive adjective, noun, preposition, adverb, and noun. So Jefferson uses two phrases with parallel structure. The use of these parallel phrases makes it clear that the two actions are of equal importance. Those are things that we never get to considerate when we read. Those are things that we barely catch when we read. But now that we have the knowledge of what a parallel structure is, we will be paying more attention, of course. Well, my friends, for now, a big thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, to hit the like button. I will be seeing you very, very soon. Take care of yourself. Thank you.